Good morning. Today is March 29th, which means it's our anniversary. So happy anniversary, Henry, if you're watching this. So I am not an archaeologist, but I do love archaeology, and it's kind of a hobby of mine, and I am always interested in reading about it and trying to understand it. Someday I'd like to study it more in depth, but that's not the possibility just yet. But it's interesting that archaeology has things that they find in the ground, and that's what they'll talk about, facts on the ground or in the ground, and they dig up things and they will find artifacts from long ago, and then there's the interpretation of what they find. And there are many different schools of archaeology, some who take the Bible seriously and what the Bible says they are looking to confirm, or just to show the evidence for what the Bible says. There are others who say the Bible should not be at all used in archaeology, that it only brings a pre-understanding or distorts the evidence. But everybody has their own theories about what they're going to find and how that's going to fit. There are those who say, well, we just dig up the facts and then we interpret them, but they have their own biases, their own preconceived notions, and all that kind of thing that color what they see. But where that comes into my mind for today is in Deuteronomy chapter 12, verses 1. It's when actually let me go to verse 2. It says, "Destroy completely all the places on the high mountains, on the hills, and under every spreading tree, where the nations you are dispossessing worship their gods. Break down their altars, smash their sacred stones, and burn their Asherah poles in the fire. Cut down the idols of their gods, and wipe out their names from those places." Some archaeologists will tell you that when they dig throughout the land of Israel, what they find is that there are idols all over the place. There are high places, there are even temples within cities that have evidence of not just one god being worshipped, but maybe two gods, maybe more than that. And then particularly, they'll find maybe a male and a female god in a place, and they'll say that, or idol in a place, and they'll say that the interpretation of that is that monotheism wasn't widespread in Israel. And they'll even say that during the times of the later kings, when there's supposed to be reforms by some of those like Josiah or Hezekiah or others who are bringing the people back to Yahweh worship. And there's a couple of different ways to look at that. Either you can look at it and say, okay, these towns were syncretistic; they were melding with the cultures around them, and they were worshiping other gods just like they weren't supposed to do. Or you can look at that and say, well, that's not the evidence everywhere, that there are some places where monotheism was still true. And what I think is tragic about that is I wonder about our own lives if somebody was to come along as an archaeologist 1,000 years from now, 2,000 years from now, if they were looking into our lives, would there be evidence that we were really following the one true God, or would they assume that we had many different gods in our lives, even by the things that we buy, the things that we spend our time on? Would they come to an understanding that we knew that there was one true God? Now, of course, culture is wide and vast, and there are many in our land who do their own thing religiously. So it will be very difficult, I think, to look back and to interpret what was going on in this time and place. I mean, we have a lot more writing and things that are available, but I think it will be difficult for them really to discern what was happening here. And I think that's tragic. I think that they're, especially when we look back at Israel, that the record should reflect monotheism. It should reflect the fact that they were worshiping the one true God who had been faithful to them for all those generations. But unfortunately, there's a lot of room for interpretation based on what is found in the ground. So I hope that's not the case with our lives too.